I would like to start off the final speech of this debate with a quote that the affirmative team said, saying, quote, "A world with social media is more democratic than a world without it," putting a stress on more and not at all democratic, meaning that we do not need social media to be a democratic country or to have democracy in general. I will be using this quote in my speech, used by the affirmative team, to prove to you how the arguments of today's debate flow to the negative side. The main arguments are as follows. Social media is not necessary for democracy. Fake news is a harm. Polarization and its inhibition of integrative thinking, which I will refute along with the contention of fairness and equality. The reaching of our representatives, and finally, freedom of speech. So let's break it down. Social media is not necessary for democracy, going back to the quote that I brought up at the beginning of this speech, and referring to the first cross-examination when I asked the affirmative team if they agreed that we can function without social media, and they largely agreed with that statement. So overall, the affirmative team has agreed with the fact that social media is not a necessary piece for democracy. Moving on to fake news, the affirmative team largely dropped this argument and agreed that it is a major problem across many platforms. It was brought up again in the last speech, though, and he said that it's not caused by social media. But if we go back to their first speech, they defined social media as not just Twitter and Facebook, but as all of these different platforms. And so in that sense, their argument is not valid, because that is by far the way that fake news is spread, through all of the ways that they have said that social media is. Moving on to the next argument, which is polarization and fairness of equality, which is a grouped argument. Hannah brought up evidence in her speech saying that not only are people not equally represented because of all of the statistics that she brought up, but they're also only influenced by like-minded people because of the people that they follow or the groups that they go to hang out with for the other platforms of what they defined as social media in a broad sense. Reaching out to representatives, they were talking a lot about phone calls, and I would like to bring up that Hannah in her speech, or in cross-examination, mentioned that the evidence was not talking about phone calls being the most effective anyway. It was talking about how ineffective social media is as a whole, and not how effective phone calls are. And I think that people putting in the effort, like he was saying that he put in all of this effort to go talk to his representative, shows that that representative was not well doing his job. And I think that in and of itself goes to show how important it is to make the effort to go through those hoops, because that person should not have been representing him if that was the case, that he had to go through all of that. And the last thing that I would like to bring up is freedom of speech. They were arguing this point by saying that hate speech is going to happen anyway, and my refutation to this is that hate speech is not free speech. Think of a little kid in a backyard. The little kid is surrounded by a fence, and he's able to freely play around. And the fence is right up against a street. If the fence is not there, the kid is still free to do whatever he wants, but he's also going to get hit by a car if he runs out into the street. The fence is there to protect him so that he can continue to play around as freely as he can. There are rules in place to help us be more free, so to speak. And hate speech is not free speech. For all of these reasons, and especially the fact that the affirmative team agreed that social media is not necessary for democracy, you should flow this entire debate to the negative side. Thank you.
Okay, talk amongst yourselves for a hot sec. I will gather my thoughts. But good job, you did it.